Hello, everybody, and welcome to Try This and this month's study group. And today we're looking at Key 11, which is called Watch a Film Clip. Now, before we start looking at an example in some detail, I'd just like to say about this. I think I was reflecting on this today. I think that this key is probably my go-to key. It's the one that I use almost more than any other because it's very flexible, it's very easy. You can use it in tiny little bits, and it's kind of like got a general kind of utility to it. And I kind of insert it into other sequences. Although we will be looking at an example together, and there's another example that we recorded earlier today, Viv's yesterday, which is really aimed at older children. This one that we'll be doing today is, in this session, will be aimed at younger children. But as I say, it has got a general utility to it, so it's very much not bound by the example that we're looking at. So this is step one. I'd like you to imagine that we are a team of people whose job it is to look after animals. So we run a kind of an animal sanctuary, if you like, and animals come from all over the place really. And our job is to look after those animals, give them the right environment to look after, help them to overcome any problems they may have had before they came to us. And then ultimately, hopefully, if we decide that that would be the right thing to do, to reintroduce them possibly to the wild. That's kind of a difficult thing because obviously we've got an awful lot to consider when it comes to doing something like that. But we do our best. That's all I'll say about that. So I'd like to tell you about an animal that's just arrived at our sanctuary. It's an elephant. It's not a large elephant. It's quite a small. They're called calves, aren't they? Baby elephants. Are they called calves? Anyway, it's a small kind of elephant, big ears, but you know, and
We're already in love with it.
and it's just coming off the trailer. So it's been on a transport from a zoo. So it was kept in a zoo. The zoo, for whatever reasons, for a number of different reasons, couldn't look after this baby elephant properly. And so it's been transported to us, and it's just coming off the back of the trailer. And there's a little bit of film. So all I'd like you to do is just to have a look at this bit of film. Now, if I was doing this in class at this point, and remember we're working with a group of young children, so we're all sat on the carpet in a circle, and I'm telling this story, and then I stand up and I say, so I'll show you the piece of film, and I'll be the elephant, and all I'd ask you to do is to have a look at what the elephant's doing and see if there is anything that gives you cause for concern, anything that makes you concerned about the elephant. Is that okay? So they're all sat there, I stand up, and then I do what I'm going to tell you I'm going to do, but I'm not going to quite do the same thing because we're on Zoom and you can't see me standing up and doing what I do. So I'm going to do something slightly different, but it's exactly the same principle. So all I'd ask you to do is to have a look at the face of the elephant. So I'm going to represent the face of the elephant just coming off the back. So you won't see it walking or anything, but you will see its face. Are you ready for that? So here we go. That's it. So
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
Yeah, no, I know what you're laughing at.
I'm laughing at how completely the elephant just arrived.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? It's funny.
Yeah.
So it's funny how our imagination works, how we transpose things, I suppose, or imagine things. So what did you see in that little clip? Was there anything at all that causes you concern?
The henchman, like the animals, really. About the henchman,
There was what, sorry?
looking out
Apprehension.
for problems and trouble.
Sort of looking both ways. Yeah.
Looking out for trouble.
Anything else?
I'd I'd say the same, like the need of uh knowing where he is going.
Yeah. Yeah. So a sense of stepping over a boundary and just being sure about, so looking both ways, just to, this doesn't sound like, that's not really a reason to be concerned, is it? That's sort of normal behavior, isn't it? I guess for
Mm.
anybody or anything coming into a strange environment. Was there
I
anything?
I feel like he's seen a lot, which I don't know where I got that from, but he's a little baby elephant, and I feel like he's seen a lot. Like
What?
that was a world weary expression for a
Ah,
baby to have.
what was it? Yeah. Well, it's a 60-year-old man trying to be a young baby elephant. Maybe you're seeing.
It wasn't to fat him. It was something it was something behind the eyes, or
Ah, okay.
that little slump that,
Now, can I
funnily
just?
enough, we,
Yeah,
we
go
were
on.
talking about that in our one, weren't we? About
Yeah.
how to have that much going on internally, you have to have had a bit of life, and yet we're told this is a baby. So those two things are causing me
Well,
concern.
young. So it's a young
Yeah,
elephant. Yeah,
sorry, a young elephant.
yeah,
Sorry, I went baby,
yeah, yeah,
baby.
yeah, 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 yeah. John?
In getting out of the transport, there's a sort of like, what's going to happen to me about what you did, which would concern me as one of the members of staff, about the point of view, the frame of mind that this, I think it's baby as well,
Yeah.
comes out with that look of what,
Yeah,
what might,
right.
what will, what could.
So as the people who are here engaging with this, we can make it a baby. Let's make it a baby. We've kind of gone with the baby, haven't we? As the people who are responsible for the welfare of this elephant now, is there anything that we could do in if we were in its presence? So imagine again, we're in the classroom. They're all sat on the floor. So what I'm now, you can see how I'm now inviting them to come into the same space as the elephant. So what could we do to help this elephant in bearing in mind what we've seen on that bit of film?
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food. What do elephants eat? Does anybody know what elephants eat?
Bananas.
Bananas. Okay.
Mm.
How do you
Lots and lots of
could you
grass.
just show me your hands? Because obviously we're all on Zoom or something. But if I'm the elephant, this is my trunk. Here we go, like that. And how do you go about feeding an elephant? Just hand out. Oh, I'm just going to go over to Viv and I'll take that. And then I'll go ahead to Ulysses and I'll have that one as well. Is that, or they kind of do it like that, don't they? They're not monkeys, are they? They sort of round and they go, "Oh, I'll have that. Thank you very much, John. I'll have those." And then we go, Charlotte, we'll have that like that. Okay. So anything else that we could do? So we've given it some food. Anything else that we might do to help it to feel a little bit less stressed and unhappy?
I'd say respect its pace.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would that look like as an action, Ulysses? If you were,
Uh,
say you were going to stroke it, how could you just demonstrate to us how you would do that?
so I would go like approaching my hand slowly and see if
Mhm.
there is any reaction.
Yeah.
And if there is any, I would approach it a little bit closer.
Okay, well, just move your hand away. This will be the elephant here. And just move your hand forward. And as you do it, just be watching to see if you get a reaction. So you're sort of mirroring that then. Okay, so the elephant is sort of coming a bit closer and you're moving a bit closer. Okay, so if you're touching it, what are you going to do? Just laying your hand on it. Yeah. Would you speak any words? Would you say anything?
Perhaps I would go like, "Hi, I'm here for you."
Yeah. Yeah. In a kind of this kind way, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you're watching it, obviously I would demonstrate this in the classroom with the children. I'd go back into the inactive, but because I can't stand up and show you, um, imagine the elephant now walking a few steps, and as it walks, it demonstrates a limp. So its hind leg, it seems to be dragging it slightly. Now, what do you think that might be going on there? What do you what do you want to do? You've seen it limping. What do you want to do? Or what would you like to know? You can ask me some information if you need to know a little bit more about what's going on there.
I would like to know if he was born with that or
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't look like that. It looks it. I'll tell you if you look closely, you sort of lean in and look closely, you'll see that there's a red mark around. They don't have ankles, elephants, do they? But around the top of its foot, below its knee, a red sort of mark of something that's been rubbing against it. Looks quite sore. What are your thoughts on that?
and calm the elephant, maybe stroke it, do some sort of a tentative little touch, a caring touch.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you lay your hands on it, and it calm. It's definitely calmer than it was. Breathing less fast. What about this wound? How should we? What are the sorts of things that we should do as the animal sanctuary people about this injury? What should we do?
Have to really be sure to reassure the animal before we take another step, really. You need to check with what his eye's doing and things.
Yeah,
He's going to flap his ears in anxiety or whatever. Look for other clues.
yeah. No, I think you've managed to calm him down or her down. She's not demonstrating any of the signs of agitation, but she is sort of bothered by this injury. So I'm just wondering what we could do about the injury.
well, I would say we should call the veterinary
Yeah, yeah,
to attend the wound and make sure it's not something with some infection or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's imagine that we do that. And now I'm going to ask you to imagine that we are the people who have the skills of a veterinarian. So how would we go about would be the first thing that we would do about addressing this this injury, this problem for the elephant? So you're saying about an infection of some kind. What are the signs of infection?
Well, if there is liquid coming out of the wound, if there is inflammation in other parts of or the surrounding areas,
Yeah.
How deep the wound is, yeah.
Yeah,
We
right.
probably need
Well,
to take his temperature.
oh, okay. So how do you? Well, that's a good question. Isn't it?
Well, it involves thermometers and rear ends.
It's all
Does it
that
have to be the
Well, it does.
Does it have
It
to be the
does.
rear end? Does it? Do we have to?
Oh well, we don't. I mean, we can have our own story. We could put it. We'd need a different thermometer, but we could put it the one the typical
You
different one
discussed
that one we
elephant-
used last time.
elephant thermometer.
But yeah, you can if you wouldn't bite it.
They're infrared
But
now.
we're vets.
Oh.
No, seriously, we're vets. We're not troubled by that sort of
No,
thing.
no, we're
you know.
not. No, I'm just
No.
asking whether there are other ways of doing it. I personally, as a
I don't
vet,
think there are really. I think it's
Oh,
under the
okay.
tail.
Right, okay, all right.
I think
Um,
I have had some experience with elephants in the past,
Oh,
you know,
good.
and touching them, and I if I touched this one, I probably could feel the heat coming from. If you didn't want to get into the other actions, or you might continue to touch the elephant.
Yeah.
I could do that for you if you like.
Well, you continue to do that then, and the just to answer Ulysses's inquiry about the the look of the wound, I'm afraid it's demonstrating all the signs that you were saying, Ulysses, of quite a serious kind of infection. We could, if Viv is happy to do it, and everybody else, those people who don't want to do this, we could take the temperature of the elephant. So if you want to join me by holding onto its tail, and then we're just going to lift it up, and this is a very strange thing to be doing on Zoom at this time on a Sunday.
It's not if you're a vet, though, is
But
it?
as a vet, it would be perfectly normal. I don't know
I've done it with my animals.
Yeah, well, with our expert eye, it does look high and a bit concerning anyway. So so we're going to have to. Oh, I'm not sure what to do with the thermometer.
Something's on my mind,
Yeah,
which is that if this is a wound that's been caused by some kind of tether or
yeah,
chain around the leg, that's very serious. And as well as treating this animal here and now, someone needs to. I would want to be sending someone from the team back to the other zoo quickly before things get cleaned away, because this is a serious thing. So we need to check, or someone, not us, but someone needs to check
sure.
what circumstances the animal was kept in before and gather evidence, photographic evidence, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, certainly. Well, would you like to speak to the owner of the zoo and find out what you can from them?
Well, I feel a bit torn because I think we're in the here and now with the elephant and we're treating the elephant, and I just want that to be happening.
You've got
that
some
someone's back
urgency
there.
with it. So,
Yeah, there's an emergency issue that I can't get past, which is
right.
someone's got to be checking it out. Or
So
did
we're
it
gonna-
happen in the van? You know, was it up in the truck or?
Sure. Right. Well, so we need to deal with the elephant first. That's number one. Tick. That's most urgent. But as soon as we can, we need to go and talk to the owner of the zoo. Right. Let's just pause it there for a minute. So we've been going for about 20 minutes, quite nicely. And that really is the key. What we've just done there is a demonstration of how the key works. So you saw how there was a film clip, but the film clip really was very, very short. And everything else is implications. Everything else is what comes from that. And you remember the question I asked you is there anything that you're seeing that gives you cause for concern as the people who are responsible for the welfare of the elephant, which is Mantler, the expert, of course.
Yeah, can I just comment quickly on that,
Yeah,
Tim?
please, yeah.
That as you were working, I was spotting differences and similarities with how we did the key in the New Zealand session, and there we watched the video clip kind of as ourselves, and then we stepped in. So it shows that you can do that either way. We watched a piece of news footage, and then we became the news presenters creating that footage. So in this case, straight away, we were people running a sanctuary, and then this was a piece of video that presumably we were watching on CCTV or something like that. So I can see how that makes a difference, because you're immediately watching it with a point of view.
Right. And the crucial thing, although it's not such an issue with an elephant, is that in the other example, it was a person. And what you want to avoid is hot seating. So, you know, if you could talk to the elephant, as you know, it's drama. We could. If you did that, it would become an interrogation. It would become a matter of the elephant answering the questions of the people who are, you know, talking to them. That's hot seating, essentially, or some variation on that. And as I said this morning, the thing is that when you're in the class and you're doing this, you want the children to be doing the work, not the role. So the role, really, just by doing the anxiety bit, that's the kind of really as much as the role needs to do. There's the limping as well, but the rest of the work needs to be done. You're asking the students to be doing the work. You know, what's going on with that look? Why is it limping? Is it something, you know, if it's something that we need to look at, what are we looking for? They're all the questions that you're asking, but the role itself, do you understand what I mean? If you turn it into a kind of a hot seating type activity, all of that kind of disappears, really. It just becomes a question and answer type session.
So can you talk about go on, did you have something else to say?
No, however, in a moment when we go and talk to the person who runs the zoo, that will be a very different kind of activity. I want to do that, as in that will be much more interrogation, but we'll have a look at that when we get to it. What were you going to ask, Viv?
Can you just explain why a film clip then, if we're, because in our example, the fact that it was a film clip kept us out of it, but in your example, we saw the film clip, and then the next minute we were interacting with the animal, almost as if we'd watched this little bit of CCTV and then had a chat about it. So why do it as a, I mean, I think I know, but just for the purposes of the conversation, why film and not just say, I'll be that elephant? What does the film clip allow?
Because a piece of film by convention is something that can be stopped and started and rewound and looked at as a piece of film. I mean, essentially, it is the same thing. So I'm going to demonstrate to you what the elephant did when it came out of the transport. I mean, I'm doing the same thing and using it in the same way. But if it's framed as a piece of film, then it has that capacity to be rewound and replayed, essentially within the convention of film.
So we didn't do that, but one could if the children hadn't
Absolutely.
picked up many clues, or
yeah, and you can reframe it in lots of different ways. So it could be something that's in the archive, or it could be what the elephant looked like when it arrived at the sanctuary. You know, it's a matter of framing, I think.
It's also set, isn't it? So things can't change because it's framed as a piece of film. So that is what happened in that few seconds.
Yeah.
So we can go deeper into it, but we can't
change it.
No. Yeah.
No, it stays as the same thing, and that's what we're looking at. That's what we're inquiring. We're not looking at a great big piece of theatre or acting. We're just looking at a moment, just a tiny moment.
And so what it also does dramatically is it sets up a whole lot of givens, because in the story we're saying, here's a film of something. So that is what happened. It's not open to creative change or whatever else. And in a funny kind of way, I'm just thinking this for the first time. It also does sends a whole lot of other messages about what world we're in here. You know, this is obviously contemporary times, for example. We're obviously, you know, it tells us the kind of group of people we are, that we're sitting around, you know, that we're seeing a film of this. It shows we've got electricity. I know it sounds silly, but this is actually setting up a context by implication.
By implication. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you saw how it took us straight into the middle of the story.
Yes. Yes.
So with only a very perfunctory, very short little could ask you to imagine if, from that we were in the middle of a story straight away. It's very efficient in that way. I use it a lot if I'm working with a class, and I'm working with a class of young children, and I've got, I don't know, 45 minutes or 35 minutes, you know, you want to be in it, straight away, you know. They don't want to hang around, and also you've got a lot to demonstrate within that time, so it's a very efficient and quick way of getting straight into the drama, I find.
And a baby elephant's a shortcut to empathy as well.
I'm
sorry, I just got one more thing to say, because I keep thinking about what the convention of a film is doing for us. I think, to go full circle, the main thing that a convention of film is doing for us, over bringing the elephant in front of us, is that we can't interact with it. No. We can't touch it straight away. We can't talk to it. We can't. If you say, would you watch this film? By implication, the compact is you can't talk to it. It can't respond to you. It can't see you. We're not actually there in the same time of it. It's like putting it into a bubble that is fixed and is past. And I think the main thing it does is stop that hot seating tendency. Right. You know, the kids, especially those small kids, they want to rush over and touch and swamp the little thing, but somehow by saying, no, this is a, you're not, no, but so this is a film, it sets up a whole lot of it sets up the compact for behavior as well, doesn't it?
Right. So John, I imagine this convention is something that you use quite often.
Yes, I've got a man in a bag, which is a little bit similar, but just to follow on from what Viv was saying, it contains, because there you are, filmic and given and no change. It's on celluloid, and you can't really do much with that, except nowadays, of course, with all sorts of funny things you can do. But I'm not talking about changing the starting point. But it doesn't prevent us going back. There's a whole load of backstory which we've already begun to explore, and again, that's by implication and possibility. So, you know, the child in me is itching for the possibility, and the detective in me is excited.
Well, let's start there then. So the next episode in our story, if you like, so in the classroom, let's imagine that the children have helped the elephant, and they've been drawing pictures about where the elephant enclosure is, and so that currently that becomes resolved. But the next episode is visiting the zoo where it came from and talking to the owner of the zoo. So John, putting your detective hat on for a moment, what sort of things would you like to know? What sort of questions have you got that you want answered?
How are things nowadays? It's difficult, isn't it? When you have to face all the problems at the sanctuary, I mean, you know, we thought we'd just try and come and just say hello. But by the way, I wanted to ask about the most recent arrival, and something like that, and then edge your way into
edge your way in. So this is this is kind of trying to put them perhaps at their ease, and just go in sideways a little bit softly. And I think that might be that might be a way of a good kind of strategy. What questions do people want answered though? What are they? What are the sorts of things that you want to find out about?
I'd like to know when the wound was caused. I'm with you on the edging approach, John. That sounds very empathic, but I also know that sometimes just making an observation, so that when this animal arrived, we observed these things, and that those are facts, and then have you got some information on how that might have occurred? It's kind of the opposite, but it's also it's not going on the attack, it's making observations about the wound. So I'd like to know when and whether they have information about that.
Okay, well, let's have a go at this then. So I'll tell you what, I'll represent the owner of the zoo, and you can come and talk to me as the animal sanctuary people who are concerned about the elephant and the welfare perhaps of the other animals in my zoo. But I'm going to ask you to do it naturally, but with one caveat, that if you see something, so the question I'm going to ask you to think about as you're talking to this person is, can you tell if somebody's being entirely honest? So as you're listening to the answer to your questions, I'm going to ask you to watch my face, and you can stop this interview at any point as if I'm in a piece of film, and then you can watch that again and talk about what you saw there in terms of what I'm communicating non-verbally. Does that make sense? So of course you can't do this in real life. You can't do this in real life. You can never stop a person in mid-sentence and talk about them in their presence. But because we're framing this slightly differently, you can. Does that make sense? Is that all right? So I'm going to give you his face. This is his face when you walk in. We're going to interview him in his office. We could do a whole bunch of stuff around his office, but we haven't got time for that. But as you're walking in, he's sitting in a rather large chair. He's got his arms folded like this. I'm going to take my glasses off so you can see my.
Is it an animal hide chair?
Yes. Okay. Yes, it is. Folded.
Oh, okay.
And he's looking like that. So let's take that as the first frame of the film. So what do you make of that as you're coming in? You're sort of encountering this person. What are you thinking there? What's his body language telling you?
Do it again for us.
Want me to do it again? Okay. So his arms are folded. You can't see my arm, but his kind of arms are. I'm putting him up like this so you can see my arms.
I think that we need John to charm him up.
We need a bit of charm. Okay. But why do you think that though, Ulysses? What is he communicating? Because he hasn't said a word yet that makes you think that's the best approach.
It seems like body language of someone that is quite on a defensive stance.
Right. So can you describe what he's doing? Like now, just pause there. Just for a moment. Ulysses, just pause there for a moment. You see what Ulysses did? So I asked him to not talk about it, but to describe. And you see what the first thing he did? He mirrored it.
And he leant back, which I hadn't noticed before. Yeah.
Because and this is what I've noticed that we all do this, is that actually language is quite difficult. So what I tend to do is to mirror and then look for the language. So the question I asked you is, what was he doing?
Yeah, children do that
made you think that he was defensive? And you immediately mirrored it. And then you kind of went, oh, and then you started thinking about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So he's got his arms folded. Now, what were you going to say about his face? What was he doing with his face? Everybody else can help out. What was he doing with his face?
His expression was clenched.
Yeah. I'll do it again so you can. I can't do it forever.
Yeah.
You're going to have to
No.
talk, you're going to have to describe it as I'm doing it. All right.
I could feel myself trying not to prejudge even that body language. I know what you're saying is, and I did have that response, but I'm probably overthinking this, but I could also feel myself going, just let's start an interaction, because I I am someone who is often told that I'm looking really angry. And I think it's because I've got this ridiculous big smile as my kind of default face. And if I don't do that, people go, oh God, she's really like, I don't know what it is, but I'm often get my facial expression misread. And so maybe that's why I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, we don't know yet. We don't know. I'm not reading too much. Yeah, I'm trying to make myself not read too much into it. Does anybody else do that? Like, I reserve my judgment until I've had that interaction, maybe.
So you're off on another wing of inquiry here. So the what we're doing is we're reading body language, and then you're giving us a critique, which is, well, be careful about that.
Yeah.
Not everybody looks like they not everybody. We constantly, as human beings, we're interpreting other people's faces. We do it all the
He
time.
could have been doing some maths when I'm genuinely mean this.
Right,
like,
so don't jump to conclusions.
He could be going, oh gosh, I'm really nervous of these people. I hate people.
Right.
I don't. I'm much more of an animal person.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend myself against him. We don't know.
Right.
So I find myself.
Which is all of this stuff that we're doing here is really important, don't you think, to these conversations with children?
Yeah,
So,
it's all part of
the whole thing around body language,
Yes.
and being able to look at people and stare at them. You get a privilege in this to stare and talk about, because this person's not really here. But in real life, you don't have that privilege. So you can have these kinds of conversations. First of all, so I've noticed that children, and Charlotte, you might be backing up with this, that lots of children actually find body language and facial expressions really difficult to read. They don't see the way that the adults see that, because they haven't yet developed the understanding of the facial expressions. Plus, as Viv says, be careful. Even if you kind of look at someone and think they look angry, they might not be. That might just be their resting face, particularly once they get to my age. You don't have the same resting face as you do when you're younger. Anyway, Charlotte, I think you're bursting to say something.
It's a problem because we had a discussion about what we're going to do about the animal and then chase it up with the zoo. But do we really want to if we know what the zookeeper's looking like? So it's about our responsibility. Is it a real responsibility? Do we really need to know, or can we eventually deal with it? So what is it about the poor elephant that gives us deeper concern, which we have to chase it up? You know what I mean? You don't want to go on with the zookeeper for too long, because it's just not going to be telling the truth. It's attribution.
Right. Yeah.
What I'm really responsible for, and do I really want to, who am I going to please, sort of thing.
Yeah.
We can't help looking at this as adults, can we? We start, building lots of sophisticated ideas around things that little children, younger children, they tend to be. Do you see what I'm saying? That they tend to,
sort of thing.
It's more kind of immediate for them. They're kind of more in that moment.
So we might be modelling what an adult will do, though, if we're looking at the end or the expert. How far do we model that expert's view of, I'm responsible for this, that, so on.
Yeah.
So we have to raise questions for the children to get into it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's crack on with this this interview then. So, John, I'm going to just go back to doing this then, and you have a go with your start, and then people can start asking questions and see how we go.
Oh, good to see you again. It's been a wee while. And how's Trix?
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. You
funny
know,
times, aren't they?
yeah, they are hard actually.
Yeah, but you
Quite
ain't
hard,
kidding. I mean,
you know.
we've been going through some of the stuff that you wouldn't believe. And anyway, just thought I'd pop over. We had a little bit of concern about that recent arrival of the baby elephant that came across in
Right.
that transport. Do you arrange with the transport? Or is that part of your Zoom
Well,
contract?
I did, yeah. I mean, that's part of our transport.
Are they regular? Do you use them all the time?
Yeah, fairly regularly.
Ah, I'm only asking because we noticed as the elephant came off, there was a wound on the leg, and we wondered if maybe during the transportation there might have been some kind of problem, or whether indeed you knew about it before it was put on the transport. Any thoughts?
No, I no, no, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what you. No, that sounds very unfortunate.
I'd like to stop it there.
I did play it a little bit. So what was the difference between what he said and what he was doing? Because there's the tension. Do you see what I mean? It's not in the interrogation. We don't. I mean, you want to avoid conflict. I think in these situations, and there's not much interest in it really. You just end up with kids shouting at you and saying you're terrible. So that's not very helpful here. So the way that we're doing it is to try and understand what's going on here, rather than to sort of come in and tell this person off for being a terrible man. So what's he doing that makes you think? Well, what made you pause, John? What was the thing that he was doing that made?
Well, he's a rogue, for goodness sake. It's obvious he's after this, and anything that's going to challenge this is.
He got all that.
Wow.
Clenching his chin.
Wow, I didn't get all
don't hang
that.
about me, you know. I don't hang about.
I didn't get all that.
Oh, blimey! I didn't think I was being that bad. I thought it was.
Wow, and this is John. You see, so charming on the surface.
You might be guilty. You might be guilty because how did the animal get to go to the sanctuary? There must have been a problem. So
Yeah.
there's a deep, dark mystery going on there.
One
Sort of-
thing I noticed, I was watching as you were talking to him, John, and you asked a question. Was he aware? Did he know? And he didn't. He didn't think for very long before he went, no. So that was a little bit of a tell. I mean, I know there was the chin thing too. I don't know if that's a well-known tell. I didn't necessarily read that as duplicitous or trying to hide, but I thought that if I was really told that something had an injury, I think and I really didn't know, I'd be kind of registering that, processing that, thinking, gosh, did I see anything? Whereas he just went, no, almost straight away.
So
yeah, there's a problem with the baby because it wouldn't just be taken away like that to a sanctuary. So there's some backstory there which is going on.
And I've been wondering all along where its mum is, haven't you, Charlotte?
Yeah. There's been a problem, and there's a problem that's mirrored in his face.
Mm.
So what do we do about that? How do we frame it up for children to understand what a real expert has to do about honesty?
Yeah. So what do you
be very careful, diplomatic, you know. So that's all adult language. Do we get that for kids?
I think everything that we've done so far, I'd be very happy to do with children. The only thing is that the conversations that we're having around it as adults isn't the same conversations you'd be having with children. But everything that we've done so far, I've done this with kids, so I'd be perfectly happy to do it with even the little ones. So the questions appear to be, what's happened to the mother? Did he know about the injury of the elephant. Well, the infection is it's not a new injury, is what I'm saying. So
Mm.
it predates the transport. So what's your next line of questioning? How are you gonna, you've got someone here who doesn't seem to be, I mean, I'm not saying he's not uncomfortable. Did you read uncomfortable, or did you sort of get a sense of he doesn't mind lying at all?
He didn't seem uncomfortable to me, really.
No.
I just got the feel of almost covering up, that business of, isn't there some research around when you do this, it means you just said something that you want to hide. So I think I was responding in my psychoanalytical way.
Yeah.
If he had
And
big
my-
ears like an elephant, would he fold them over his face?
Yeah.
It's
So-
about responsibility, isn't it? So the chap who looks as though he said, well, it's not my responsibility. So that's
Well,
quite an important part of experts, isn't it?
Yeah. So, what do you want to ask him as a follow-up? What do you want to ask him next? How are we gonna get past this thing that he's not going to be honest?
Yeah, well, maybe it's the factual based approach next, because we kind of didn't get there through the human relating. So I'm thinking about that format for communication that you learn where you state a fact that can't really be contested by either side and takes all the heat out of it, and then you talk about your response to that and the needs that are in the situation, and then you make a request.
Right. So
Try that.
So he could be quite easily caught in a lie here, can't he? Because John's asking him about the transporter. He's sort of saying, well, there was nothing wrong with the elephant before it got on the transport, and yet Ulysses tells us, from his examination, that the elephant, has got this wound, and it's not.
That's why I think you go to facts.
Right.
You state some facts, talk about the needs in both cases, and then make a request.
Right. So let's phrase that. Let's work how that. So we're going to confront him with that, with the facts, not emotional, just.
No, not at all. It's about circumnavigating that. It's not violent. It's compassionate. But the fact is, we've just taken receipt of an animal.
Right.
It's got a suppurating wound on the right rear limb. And the pathology shows that that's at least a fortnight old.
Right.
As a team, we need to take account of that. We need to balance up the needs of the elephant with our own responsibilities and with yours.
Right.
And I think we're all agreed we all have the best. We all have a concern for the best conditions for the animals and getting to the heart of what they need.
Sure.
I haven't put that need very well. Perhaps someone can help me. So we have a need to protect and look after these animals, but we also want to protect and look after all the humans that are involved in the difficult job of looking after them.
And,
Go on, Ulysses.
yeah. So thing is, we are worried about our own accountability in presenting this case to the authorities and get everyone as free as possible and without much more trouble, because then they will have to go into our facilities, and your facilities that will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
No.
We're worried and concerned, and
Sure.
we're also concerned for you.
Yeah.
That we know what it's like to as John was saying, we understand the overwhelm,
Mhm.
and we're guessing that you might be feeling overwhelmed at the moment with the
Yeah,
with the responsibilities
yeah,
and the questions.
right. There's no need to get the authorities involved. The authorities, we can, we care about animals. We can deal this with ourselves. There is a, yes, I mean, I'm not personally responsible for all of the animals.
Can we stop there? Can you do your eyes again like you were doing your eyes? By heck, your eyes are showing guilt and worry and tension and money, more money.
So what am I doing with my eyes? Because
To the heaven.
Yeah, and it's so weird because I can feel myself doing it. I'm not actually. It's such a weird.
That's a real tell, isn't it? Because you look up when you're inventing.
Yeah.
You look up when they're inventing.
And I think it's because one of the things that's really important about the role, and why I don't really like this notion of hot seating, is that I can feel I'm in a hot seat now, but there's a good reason for that. The situation has got ourselves into this place where hot seating actually is the right metaphor, but we're not messing around. I'm not pretending. I'm genuinely feeling uncomfortable. When Ulysses mentioned the authorities, I was like,
yes.
Right, okay, this
and we didn't get as far as our request. So what would our request be? Because he's fending off all the the feeling stuff, but we have a request. I don't know if it's a request for all the records associated with this animal's care.
Try
Going
it.
back for 3 weeks. We want
you
to
want
give
3
a
weeks worth
request.
of records.
We'd like to see whether there's any existing records. So we would like to request that, and all the CCTV footage that you might have
really,
from the enclosure.
that does seem a bit excessive, if you don't mind me saying. I'm sure we can come to some kind of compromise on this. I don't really.
So you're saying no to that request?
Well, you can read it as a no if you like. I'm saying that I think we could be. I mean, there's a lot of it. I'm not sure that you need all of it.
Well, we have something clear in our hands, is that we want to present a clear report to the authorities, so as they won't have the need to come into our facilities. So in order to do that, because of the extent of the wound and the time it had to pass for it to be infected, we would be needing those 3 weeks of time.
Yeah, we're trying to establish the facts.
Right.
Surely you can see that we're trying our very best to make sure animals that we look after, that you look after, and you've got a long reputation. I mean, how long is it now that you've been open as a zoo? Years, and
20 years.
I forget how many, but what do you suggest?
Well, I suggest that I pay.
Stop there, please.
God, if
You suggest what?
God.
Well, he's going to burble his way through as much as he can, because he's quite rightly blocking.
Yeah, because at this point, I don't know about others, but at this point, I would disengage with this person because he's not working with us.
Well,
so
I was about to say, come out and say where you've got him. He can. He as you say, he's blocking and he's making excuses and all the rest of it. But essentially, you've got him. You've managed to hem him. He lied at the beginning. That's his problem, and you were able to catch him out in a lie, and then you used various methods in order to, to block him in.
But I don't think, which is what is important about teaching this kind of communication, I don't think we attacked him.
No.
And that's why I think talking in terms of the facts, talking about Ulysses did it really well. He went to our feelings and concerns and what's really matters and the values behind it, and then the power of the specific request.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think you know, if I want to justify it in terms of learning, I'm saying you know, there's the clear here inquiry around that. I think the way of being able to look at people and be able to talk about
yeah.
you know, communication and being in contact with somebody and what kinds of questions you ask and how you ask those questions and all that stuff. This for me is really, really important stuff that drama does better than anything else. It's great for human communication. I think the second thing is this thing around dissembling. And how can you tell if somebody's not telling the truth? Not to shout at them and get angry with them and throw things at them and turn it into a fight, but actually to say, well, how do you deal with people who don't tell you the truth? You know, how do you go about doing that? Well, this is how you do it. You don't shout at them and argue with them. You just say, well, what about this? This doesn't line up with what you're saying. This isn't, you know, that doesn't sound like that's right.
And also empathy. You know, I find myself wondering what's going on for him, and I did find myself saying to him, I'm wondering if you're feeling overwhelmed. So that's an empathy for the human within him too.
Right. So
Yeah.
so you'd need we haven't got time because we need to finish now, but you'd need something else for the grace element. You know, and John,
Yeah.
you know, you've been doing this for 20 years, you've got a good reputation. So I know, John, you're sort of saying it with a smile that his motivation is money, but it may be a lot more than that. It may be that he did come into this with good intentions.
You have to wonder what the heck he was doing, sticking the, like, what did he think was going to happen? Like, we wouldn't notice.
Well, he didn't. Well, yeah, but again, if you apply the grace element, it's like you know, things have got out of hand. Perhaps he had people
Yeah.
that could afford to pay him. He could afford to pay to look after the elephants, and he had to cut down on because they didn't have the money, and then he had to chain up the baby.
We're getting it.
It was causing trouble, and rather, I mean, he could have killed the elephant, couldn't he? I mean, and hidden it, buried it, but he didn't. So, you know, I think there are all kinds of elements to him that we haven't had time to explore that we definitely would if we were in the classroom. Ulysses, I think you had your hand up for a moment there.
Yeah, there is a funny story here in Mexico. So this person rescue a panther or something. And then he make some sort of a sanctuary or that sort of thing. And then he began rescuing lots and lots and lots of cats, but without having the financial plans to back it up. Then COVID came and it just stressed more. And when authorities finally knew about the situation of the animals, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And this guy, I mean, he was filled with good intentions more than practical or reality orientation. So it was a bad case of much love.
Yeah. Somebody ending up doing something bad when they meant to do good, and that's happens all the time, doesn't it? So I think
Yeah.
It's got all those qualities to this, and as John I think was saying about the baby elephant must have a backstory. Well, we're starting to explore the backstory now, aren't we? We're starting to unpack that and find out, you know, what's happened to this elephant and why it's with us. Anyway, so that's key 11, and done various ways. And as I say, I think it's a kind of my utility one. It's the one that I go to a lot, and I use it in lots of different ways. And I don't get too hung up on whether it's realistic or not. Do you know what I mean? I'm using a kind of finger quote. I'm not really quite.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Tim.
Yeah.
and I quite enjoyed how you took us into that second version where it was an interview, but it was kind of going to be like a film where we could stop it. Like there's nothing like that in real world. That's not a, and I think that's taught me something, because I've always kind of gone, okay, so what kind of film is this? Well, there isn't any kind of film where we stop and start an interview, really. So I can see how you're using it as a kind of an organizational convenience to tell the children we're going to be able to stop reality and have another look at it, rather than always hanging on to the coherence of it as a piece of film or how it fits in our world. So that's, yeah, it's great that we had time to do it the first time as a film, and the second time more as this kind of abstract notion of rewindable reality, unstoppable and stoppable reality. That was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, it does kind of contradict other things I've said about coherence, but we won't get into that right away.
It's okay. We're
Because-
allowed to do that.
because I think it's got some real quality. It's got some real elements to it that we wouldn't have any other way. You know, the way that John was doing it, where he would ask a question, listen to the answer, and then say, "Stop, hold it there." That children do that. I've done that with children. Yeah. Whoa, stop there. What was that? What was he doing there? And they go, "Would you like to see it again?" And they do it again, and they go, "Well, he's doing something there. Did you see what he's doing with his? What's he doing there with his hand? What's he doing?" And they start unpacking the whole thing, because it's got this quality of, if it was a film, as if it was a film.
I suppose we could frame it as, let's have a look at the video of that interview and stop and start, but in a way that you just get too hung up on.
I've tried that.
Yeah,
that is more coherent. But then it becomes overcomplicated. You don't really need.
Yeah.
To, you just say,
No,
as if it was a piece of film. Just if you want.
Yeah, as if it was, as if we could do that with reality. I think that's, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works brilliantly. Works really, really.
Interesting. And interesting to hear you say it's your go-to. I think, having watched you a lot, I'd say it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Teacher in and out of role, simple convention of stopping and starting, examining, because it gives you the opportunity to unpack everything.
Yeah, because many of us have our go-to of in and out of role, but without that element of stop and analyze. So it's a small change, but a big one. To just add that to the teacher in role habit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so when you're in role, if you're coming out, if you've got somebody who's in role for you, and you can just pause it and just say, "Did you see that? Did you see what they just did there?" Well, this gives you the facility to be able to do it yourself. So you're there with the children, unpacking what you're doing as you're doing it. So it gives you all those different layers and qualities to it. So, was there anything else, or I think that's the end. Unless John.
I just, one last thing I've been wanting to say since we started, which is when we wrote this book, team, we had a sort of private joke, the rest of us on the team, because of how many times Tim's examples included references to elephants. If you look through, there's quite a few, and I think there was even one more, and we went, no, too many elephants, and we pulled it back. And there's a reason for that, because the elephant trope, it's so much more than a trope, but it's a big, beautiful, humanesque, we deeply care. It's elephants and whales. There's something about those large mammals that we deeply care for. So, and one of the most profound experiences I've had in a classroom was with Tim and some children and an imaginary elephant who happened to be pregnant. And the baby and the mummy elephant wasn't going to make it, and we had to rescue that baby calf. There's something about what elephants do for us, but I just had to chuckle that this is one of the elephants. One of Tim's elephant moments. So thank you, Tim.
Thank you. I think, Charlotte, you were going to say something.
I was just wondering what point you make allowances for people who are very visual, like the boy I was with was very concerned about people being unfair animals, and he couldn't raise a question unless it was very calm, quiet. There was just the two of us, So at some point, children might want to write their own version, and that it leads into an arts or a storytelling
Sure.
activity.
Yeah.
Is that right? So what you
Yeah.
do?
So the animal sanctuary, of course, is full of animals, and the children, each child makes up a story for their own animal. So they draw the
Yeah.
animal, whatever animal they most want to look after, and then they create the backstory for that animal.
Yeah.
And,
And use what was being discussed. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
John, did you sort of lent in like you were going to say?
Thanks. Thank you for this evening again. That's what I want to say, number one. But secondly, it refreshes me to be reminded at the power of the questions that you place in your facilitation role, and the power of the questions you enable us to ask is like a spine for developing it. And so I've taken that again from this evening. Thank you.
Yes. Taken a lot from this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Mm.
Well, I've enjoyed doing it with you. It's been fun. being an evil zoo owner is.
That's not going to be the last time, is it? I have a feeling you'll get him out again.
No, I think that's one of my goals. Anyway, so thank you all, and see you all hopefully next time. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye,
Great to